Imagine a place where wealth and luxury walked hand in hand with decadence and corruption. A society that thrived materially but sank morally each day. Sound familiar? The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not just a distant account from the past. It echoes profound truths about justice, choices, and consequences. But is everything we have heard about these cities accurate? What really led to their destruction? Much is said about the sin of these cities, but few explore the biblical details that reveal surprising nuances. What does Ezekiel 16:49 really teach us about Sodom's corruption and arrogance? How does Abraham's intercession demonstrate the power of mercy? And what does Lot's wife, looking back, teach us about attachment to the past? Get ready for a fascinating journey through Genesis 18 and 19, where we will uncover the secrets behind this divine judgment and the valuable lessons for today. The fame of these cities has endured through the centuries as a symbol of moral decay. The Bible tells us that the outcry against them reached the heavens because of the great wickedness that reigned there. Genesis 18:20. But what were these sins? While many associate Sodom solely with immorality, the problem was far deeper. According to Ezekiel 16:49, there was pride, excess of food, neglect of the poor, and rampant corruption. The people were so immersed in selfishness that they cared neither for justice nor for those suffering around them. When a society ignores basic principles of ethics and morality, destruction becomes an inevitable consequence. The inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah lived in luxury, but their riches only fueled their corruption and arrogance. These cities had everything to prosper spiritually, but chose decadence instead. This leads us to an essential reflection. Do we see similar patterns today? When selfishness and injustice dominate, the warning signs are clear. The story of Sodom is not just about the past, it is a mirror of the present. Faced with the announcement of imminent destruction, Abraham did something remarkable. He interceded for Sodom and Gomorrah. He knew that God is just but also merciful. So he dared to ask, what if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you still destroy it? Genesis 182,332. With humility and boldness, Abraham negotiated with God, reducing the required number of righteous people needed to spare the city down to just 10. This passage teaches us that intercession has power and that even a single righteous person can make a difference in the midst of darkness. However, the corruption was so great that not even 10 righteous people were found. This shows the gravity of the situation. Sodom and Gomorrah were spiritually bankrupt. But Abraham's attitude also leaves us with a deep lesson. Have you interceded for someone today? Often, we look at the chaos around us and forget that we can cry out for change. Just like Abraham, we can be bridges between divine justice and mercy. If the fate of a city depended on your prayers, would there be salvation? Sodom and Gomorrah were not poor or lacking resources. On the contrary, they were prosperous and abundant, but their wealth was not accompanied by justice and compassion. The problem was not money itself, but how it was used. According to Ezekiel 16:49, Sodom was condemned not only for immorality, but also for its pride, excess of abundance, and disregard for the needy. Their prosperity led to corruption, and their lack of empathy sealed their fate. This leads us to an important reflection. Prosperity can be a blessing or a trap. When wealth is mismanaged and used only for selfish purposes, society collapses. How many civilizations have already fallen for this same reason? And today, is the modern world repeating Sodom's mistakes? Money can be an excellent servant, but a terrible master. The true test of prosperity is not how much we have, but what we do with what we possess. Two angels arrived in Sodom, sent by God to assess the situation and rescue Lot and his family before the destruction. They entered the city disguised as travelers and were welcomed by Lot, who received them into his home with hospitality, a fundamental value in that culture. Genesis 19:13. However, the reception from the population was very different. The men of the city surrounded the house and demanded that the visitors be handed over to them with violent and perverse intentions. This not only confirmed the city's moral decay, but also demonstrated its complete rejection of justice and righteousness. This scene is a turning point. Sodom was not just a sinful city, it was a place where evil had become the norm. The presence of the angels revealed the hardened hearts of the people. Had the inhabitants at least shown hospitality, perhaps there would have been hope. But there wasn't. This brings us to a crucial point. How do we respond to God's presence in our lives? Are we ready to receive Him? Or do we resist change, just as Sodom did? Often, opportunities for redemption appear disguised, and how we handle them can define our destiny. After witnessing the corruption and disregard for justice, the angels delivered the verdict: Sodom and Gomorrah would be destroyed. The wickedness was so great that there was no longer room for repentance. The angels warned Lot to flee immediately with his family, as divine judgment was about to fall upon the cities. Genesis 1:9-12-13. However, even with a clear warning, Lot hesitated. His attachment to that place nearly cost him his life. The angels had to literally take him by the hand and pull him out. This shows us how often we insist on staying where God has already declared an end. How many times do we cling to what destroys us? Lot had the chance to escape, but hesitated, just as many do when resisting necessary changes. The judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah did not come without warning. The problem was not just sin, but the refusal to heed the signs. Today, can we recognize when something has come to an end? Are we attentive to God's warnings in our own lives? Deliverance often comes before destruction, but only those who obey can escape. As they fled, the angels gave a clear instruction: do not look back. Genesis 19:17. Yet, Lot's wife disobeyed and turned to look at Sodom one last time. In that instant, she was transformed into a pillar of salt. What might have seemed like mere curiosity revealed something deeper. Her heart was still tied to the city. While her body left Sodom, her mind and emotions remained bound to that place of sin and destruction. This teaches us that it is not enough to physically leave a situation. We must let go in our hearts as well. How often do we look back when God has already told us to move forward? Whether it's a toxic relationship, an old sin, or a phase of life that has ended, we cling to the past and resist the new. Lot's wife teaches us that nostalgia for what God has already closed can be fatal. When we insist on reliving what has been destroyed, we risk becoming paralyzed along the way. If you feel that God has something new for your life, the best thing to do is move forward without looking back. After all, the future is never in the past. Now, I ask you, what is the Sodom in your life? What has God already told you to leave behind, but you insist on looking back? Today is the moment to reflect and act, to seek a different path, and align your life with values that bring growth and purpose. If this message made you think, share it with someone and subscribe to the channel for more transformative reflections. Let's embark on this journey together.